All right, everyone. Thanks for coming. Ready to get started. It is 4 o'clock on the East Coast. So today we were gonna discuss technician pay structure and labor laws. So the luxury room format that we're doing here is pretty open. We are looking for participation from others. I don't want to just sit here and talk. Nobody wants to hear that, and I don't have an hour's worth of stuff to say. So, before we start, I want to remind everybody if you have not signed up as a member of UASA, you should. And if you haven't registered for ASTI yet, go to ASTI.us and get in before the price goes up. So, I picked, can everybody hear me okay? Because I'm not getting
Yep.
anybody. Yeah, okay, good.
Yep.
So, I picked this topic. I saw a couple of posts on the Facebook groups about it recently, and it is something we actually went through recently. At my company, we spent some time and pretty good amount of money with a labor attorney to review our handbook, set up a technician pay structure that complies with New York labor laws, which are pretty strict. So I thought it'd be a good topic to bring up. Before we get into any of that, so I'll go over the way we pay technicians, and then I'd like to hear some feedback from everybody else and just see where everybody's at, and then we can discuss details and possible problems that might pop up. So we pay our techs a combination of hourly pay, commission, and then bonuses, overtime, all of that stuff. Specifically, the way it works is their hourly pay is their baseline. It's pretty low. Their commission essentially works out to anything that's in excess of their hourly pay. And I can get into detail about that if you're interested. Then there are a couple of bonuses they're eligible for selling high value jobs or getting reviews. And then, of course, there's overtime. And then in New York, there's something called overtime true up, which is not just your regular hourly rate times 1.5. You have to actually calculate how much they got paid, including commission and bonuses, divided by the number of hours they work, come up with their regular rate of pay, which is their actual hourly rate, and then pay overtime on that, which can add up to quite a bit. So that's the structure we use. I'm interested in hearing some other people and how they pay their technicians. If straight hourly, a mixture, straight commission, how does it work for you guys? Who wants to chime in on that?
I'll start.
Sure.
So we've kind of similar. We're in Minnesota. So we're in Minnesota. So we kind of deal with some of the same things that you're dealing with in New York, where the technicians, auto mechanic is exempt from overtime, but a service technician is not. So we have.
But that's a very gray area because in the HVAC industry, they're exempt. You can pay commission. It's just so stupid. And
We don't need to get into that. So, so we have some guys that want the consistency of same amount every week. Okay, we pay our technicians weekly as opposed to bi-weekly. And then we do similar to you, where they have a weekly base guarantee where no matter what they bill out in labor or anything like that, they get, say it's $700. That's their weekly guarantee. If they bill out, and then they get a percentage on the commission. So whichever is greater, basically. So if they have a really good week, they get commission. If they have a really poor week because they're out sick or they had all warranty jobs and had a lot of part orders, etc., they're still guaranteed that 700. So we technically will, if they should have, if it was just straight commission, if it should have been paid $500 instead of $700, we eat the cost of that $200. And then we also have a technician bonus program that's based throughout the year based on labor revenue. It's basically based on productivity, where the guys, I mean, so that it's open-ended. So they want to do more work. They'll make more money.
That's how it used to work. Now you added the hourly function to it now too.
Well, we had to add that because of Minnesota. We had to, similar to you, we had to, because of recent changes and things like that, we also spoke with an attorney and were told some unfortunate news where we had to kind of upend with no complaints, of course, from the employees, but to be liable or to be compliant, I should say, we had to upend our structure as well.
How did that affect your overtime payments, if it did at all?
Well, for us, I mean, we were under the impression that they were exempt, so we're kind of
Okay.
We never had.
we never were paying it technically, not that they were necessarily working it.
Right.
But now it's been, yes, I mean, it's affected where they're getting paid more to do the same amount of work because of the overtime. So, and as Tom was saying, it's a gray area in Minnesota based on the laws, but we don't fall under the exempt from overtime currently by the state law. So,
Yeah.
hopefully maybe someday they'll change that, but probably not. Not in Minnesota at least. So,
All right. Well, cool. Thanks for that feedback. So who else wants to talk about their pay structure? How
Just,
you guys pay your
just
tax?
to add to, is it Nick? Are you Nick or is the guy in the back?
yes, I'm Nick. Tom's in the background.
Hey, Tom. In the 90s, late 90s, we had that same thing happen in Connecticut. And the owner had to pay me back overtime for 2 years with a check because we were audited. So we've been doing this now just the way you're doing it for a long, long time. But good news, David Oliva. Technicians don't put in 50 to 60 hours anymore like they used to. So for me, overtime, which I never got paid for, once they started paying me, I was making an extra $6,000 to $10,000 a year in overtime. And recently, I went through, and my technicians are averaging like under 5 for overtime. So it's not a huge number anymore for us because we're slackers.
Yeah, we don't get a ton of overtime for our techs, but the thing that really made a significant difference in the payroll expense was the overtime true up, right? So not their base $25 an hour. That's not that big of a deal. But you have weeks where these guys are making a few $1,000s and they've worked, an extra 5 hours of overtime and it comes out to like $90 an hour. And now you got to pay overtime on that.
You do.
That's a big, that can be a big hit. So yeah, we've been trying to see what we can do to reduce overtime.
Yeah, I guess in Arizona, I mean, when it comes to the law, it's minimum wage, right? And then plus time and a half if they go over overtime. But I don't see any techs approach overtime. Or so it's not something we have to worry about a whole lot. We pay techs on labor a percentage. So depending on where they're at in their skill level, some techs will be different in labor. And then we have a bonus structure in there based off of their recalls. So if they're 1% to 3%, they make a certain percentage of total revenue of parts and labor. And then if they're 3% to 6%, they can make another different percentage of that. So we really we used to have it, and then there's a baseline of $12,000 revenue for the pay period. So they at least have to work. They have to be here and be present. But we really think bonusing off of the quality of work is what's important to us as a company, is efficiency and not going back to calls for free. We used to base it off of just total revenue, but you can have a technician run 10% recalls, 12% recalls. And if he works hard, he can still hit his bonus because he just has enough shots, enough customers. But when you look at the recalls being high, it's like, for us, we didn't think that was the right metric. We prefer a quality of work, and it really made technicians pay attention to recalls and want to have conversations about them. When we really put that up front, then the technicians started coming to us saying, hey, let me talk about my recall. When it wasn't a metric of how they got paid, they didn't really give a shit, right? It didn't matter to them because it didn't hit them it didn't hit them in their pocketbook. And then we have some other metrics that we bonus them on. We use a technology called Nearby Now. So they have to, the amount of Nearby Now check-ins they have, they can make a bonus off that. And then they can also make a bonus off reviews. And then there's a quarterly bonus too, which is based off of their recall percentage. So we really, as time went on and looking at a pay structure, recalls were the biggest one for us because, as you guys all know, and that's where you're gonna lose a lot of your profit. And these technicians, and you try to tell a technician to slow down, it doesn't work, right? But if you really say, hey, you get paid more if your recall rate's lower, it slows them down naturally. They need to make sure that that machine is working properly before they leave. So it's done well for us. Our recall rate has gone down because of that.
I think you're managing it with them as well. You must be talking about it because the pay part, I don't know. Do you feel like once you set that structure in place, all your techs just looked at and said, common sense, I need to slow down? Or was it a bit of coaching as well on your part to say, hey, look at what you could have got, or look at what you're losing?
Right. Yeah. I think it's always talking about recalls, and I think that feeds into CSI, right? We have such a big, reviews are a big deal to us, as they should for any home service company, because ultimately the better reviews, the better jobs you're going to get, the more jobs you're going to get. And it all feeds into all of that, I believe. Man, if we can do a great job in the house, we get more reviews. Our reviews are 5-star, which means we're going to get more work, and that's going to make you more money. It's all about making everybody more money and making the customer happy. And I think for us too, it was just having that open dialogue with technicians that, like, let's have a conversation about your recall, because maybe we're not trying to take money away from you, and if it's not a true recall, then let's have a conversation about it, and we're open-minded to saying, okay, you're right. I don't think that's a recall. We're not going to count that against you. So.
We do something similar. The techs are able to fill out a little form, which we get a notice of, where if they sort of want to like dispute the recall status, and then we review it and say, okay, this was or it wasn't, and kind of along the lines of that. Yeah.
And what do? They just turn in that form to the office manager? Or?
Well, it's part of the software. If they, it's called a recall reconciliation, and they just like click a checkbox. I don't think this was a legitimate recall, and they say why, and then we get an alert about that, and then we can review it and say, okay, it was or it wasn't, modify it accordingly.
And you guys are on Service Titan, right?
Correct, yeah.
Okay, Service Titan won't take appliance repair companies anymore, but
I don't think that's true.
That's true. I've been
It
trying
is
to
true.
get on. Michael's been trying
100%.
to get on. They send you to a whole different little link of their sister or their other little company, and it's like, man, David's on freaking Service Titan, but we can't get on.
As a side note, I have a sales rep you guys can talk to if you're interested, but you can message me, off of here if you.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Yeah.
What's the best software to use to track all that?
That's definitely debatable, right?
Yeah. I think most software has some sort of form you can hit, you can hit a switch and makes it a recall, and then you can print out a report. But as we all know, not all platforms are equal.
Right.
I think it's actually one of the more difficult things to actually keep track of as an accurate number.
Right.
Even with the software, it's still hard to keep track of.
100%.
Yeah.
Wow, why? Not that we want to deal with this rabbit trail, but a non-service charge paying customer is somebody we're going back on because it's covered under our warranty, right?
Yeah, but like keeping track of the percentages, I don't know. It's always something I've had trouble getting straight. I can do it, but it's not as straightforward. It's never been for me as straightforward as it seems like it should be. Just actually getting into the numbers. So I don't know.
I mean, we use Service Desk, so you can't really track the last 30 days.
Okay.
And it gets me all confused trying to think about why not.
Huh.
But you can track 60 days or 90 days back, but then you're not really following a tech trend issue
And
in the
yeah,
lifetime.
there
So
always seems to be some software thing that prevents you from getting the full picture of it. So you got to do some
Yeah.
workarounds. I don't know
Yeah, yeah.
what that's about.
Yeah, and like for us, right, if we had a tech that went out 6 months ago and let's say that drain pump and that washer quit working and it's defective part, yeah, is it a recall? Yeah, but we don't make it a recall on the technician. That's not the technician's fault. He or she didn't do anything wrong. And we don't feel like the technician should take the hit because that would ultimately come out of their pay. So, but that's for everybody to make that decision on their business. That's just what we've made the decision to do.
back to the payroll thing, bonuses get hit a lot harder in payroll, which is caused me to get stuck and not want to fix and change our incentive plan, because then I start seeing this and that and getting frustrated and overwhelmed. So I just kind of put it over on the corner of my desk. But I mean, it's almost 38 or 35 or 38%. That money, if you're giving them $2,000 or $1,000 or $500 and it's just dissipating to $150 or something, they're not really feeling it and seeing it unless you're giving them a receipt. And then they're gonna just hate your state for working there to see it. Hey, I bonus you 2,000. Where the fuck is it, man? But it's a big hit. So I'm trying to figure out how to incentivize them without it not being bonused potentially.
Is that a state tax or is that a federal tax that charges around bonuses?
It's both.
No,
Shouldn't it just even out though at the end of the year? I mean, if you make
Yeah, there's
70,000, you should make 70,000. It shouldn't then it might in that moment in time because the system thinks they're in a higher tax bracket, but I would think at the end of the year, it would even itself out and maybe then they get a refund, but to your point, would the technician like the money right now as opposed to 8 months or 9 months? Sure. I think we all would.
Yeah, we do our bonuses on a weekly basis. Well, some stuff is monthly, like reviews. We keep track of for a month, but everything else, we have some dollar value job bonuses that are just paid out weekly, and it does go in a separate line item on the pay stub, so you can see it as a separate item.
And I would like to hear just real quick, and I'll shut up. I am interested in the office bonusing because I know we always talk about technicians. I'm really trying to start wrapping my head around the office. The office is super important. They do a huge part of the job, and so I'd love to hear what some of you guys have out there in terms of that.
Well, we did for my office manager to sort of encourage her to improve booking rates and just number of jobs booked. She gets 1% of the trip charges for all the jobs that we book. So she can increase job bookings and do a better job of fumbling the words. If she can increase the percentage of jobs booked, percentage of calls that comes in that get converted to book jobs, or just improve the workflows or whatever to do, whatever she can to improve job booking, she gets more money. So she's getting a percentage of the trip charges we collect.
So how does your system, are you able to filter out just the trip charge?
Oh yeah, that's a separate item code, and we collect that on the phone. So it's really easy to just keep track of that for
sure. So with my pay structure, our laws and stuff like that are a little different here in Oklahoma. They're a whole lot looser than New York and other states like that. I started a base pay system that tiers anywhere from $600 to $1,000. And basically I did that to give all of my technicians something to keep working for. So if they're a novice tech coming in and learning and stuff like that, they start their base pay at $600 a week, on the way up to a master tech with sealed system at $1,000 a week, plus a 10% commission on all of their labor that they do. And then onto the bonus structure, we have a revenue bonus to keep them try selling parts and jobs and stuff like that. So that's calculated on their total revenue. I itemize that bonus out because I do basically biweekly pay, and then I do one commission check a month. And when I do that commission check, I itemize it out on a little sheet that I give them that shows if they made their bonus and all that and their bonus level. but I just throw it in as a commission number to keep them from getting taxed as a bonus on the commission or on that bonus money there. But I adapted this system, I guess it's been about 4 or 5 months now. And all the guys have loved it. If they miss days that they don't use for vacation, I'll pull those out of their commission. So they're always getting their base weekly pay no matter what. So there's no variation in their pay. And then their commissions are done on a performance base as well from recall ratio. So if they're at a 6%, 7%, whatever, to keep everybody performing accurately and doing jobs properly. So, but it's that's worked out really good, and it always gives a technician, hey, you know, this guy wants to make more money. Okay, well, hey, complete these classes, do this, you know, get Sealed System certified. Let me send you to school, take this training on, and we've got all the steps mapped out in each level of that, from technician, senior technician with Sealed System, master technician, that plays all that out, so they know how to continue to develop up through the business, through the company. So
One of the things I found out about bonuses, at least in New York, it probably applies to some other states that are similar, was how you qualify a bonus and whether or not it has to go towards that overtime true up. And basically what it came down to was, in New York, at least, if they're required to do something, it's not a bonus, right? Like if they can't decide not to do it, it doesn't count as a bonus, and then it has to be calculated into their overtime calculations. So like you can give a legitimate bonus would be something for reviews, but if they're getting a bonus for selling a certain percentage of their jobs, like that doesn't really qualify as a bonus. They're qualifying that as commission, and it all plays into the overtime, which was an interesting thing. And it probably is similar in other states too.
You know,
Curious
we're located in Cincinnati, Ohio. We have 4 technicians do about $1 million a year. Trying to find actually technician number 5 and 6. But we do basically 40% of trip, labor, special tools, period, stop. No other bonuses, no other compensation. Our technicians on the low end made 75, and on the high end, kind of mid to upper 80s. I mean, they do get vacation, and we figure their vacation pay based on their last 6 months average. We give bonuses to our office personnel whenever whenever we give ourselves a bonus, ourselves being the owners, we do a withdrawal. We give our office manager a week's pay, and we will give other people in the office, usually a couple $100 bonus. So the thought is, if we make money, they make money. You know, we supply them with everything they need. Our time between calls is probably 15 to 20 minutes. And we have our techs stock their van as full as they can. We want to solve it in one trip if we can. And so, for Cincinnati, Ohio, that's a reasonable living for our technicians. They're very happy about it. They feel like they're getting paid more than most techs in the Cincinnati area. So
how'd you come up with 40%? That's quite a bit higher than people were usually paying on commission.
Well, we do not pay any commission on parts.
Right.
Yeah.
We keep all of the parts revenue. I don't know. It's just kind of where we landed. I mean, we've been in business for 40 years, so I'm sure it was evolutionary.
Are they employees?
We've
or
never paid a
1099?
salary.
Are they employees or contractors?
Oh, they're employees.
Wow.
We provide the vans, we give them credit cards for the
I'm getting
gas
my
and the
resume out to you,
miscellaneous.
man. 40%. I love it.
Hey guys, may I ask you a question?
Sure.
I'm in Houston, Texas. We're on appliance repair business for, well, we're kind of newcomers, like 3 years in the trade. And we've started hiring 1099ers, but then we mix them with W-2s. And the thing is, 1099ers doesn't want to go to W-2. Maybe anyone already solved that challenge. How do you guys convince contractors to switch to W-2s? Because
pretty
obviously
simple.
they pay will be cut.
Yeah,
It's illegal.
well, for us, we don't offer, we've never had a contractor.
That's a
We
legacy
hire
thing
them
in my
as
case.
Yeah, we hire them as employees with the understanding of their compensation package.
I thought
Hey, guys.
1099 would be cheaper.
Well, I mean,
Hey,
it is
guys.
cheaper, but you're not, that's typically illegal anyway.
Yeah,
Well,
right.
you can't tell 1099 employees when to be somewhere.
Right, because they're not employees. They don't work.
Exactly. You can give them work and say, go do it, but
Right.
but that usually doesn't work for a business that works on a schedule.
No.
You have to be extremely careful of 1099 stuff because there are laws that exist that if a 1099 employee gets a certain amount of his work from one company, they're an employee of that company. So if they're only working for you and you're giving them a 1099, that might not be legal. You have to check that very carefully.
Yeah,
because
there are a lot of
laws.
risks, laws, how you call it, workers' compensations, all this stuff. I understand that. That's why I want to convert 1099ers I had originally to W-2s, but so far I
Well-
wasn't able to convince them.
Can I ask you, Ivan,
Sure.
what's the problem you're trying to solve by going from 1099s to W-2s? Like, is
I don't
the
wanna
system
go to
working the way it
jail.
is now? Oh, I see. You're in too deep. I
Yeah.
gotcha. Okay,
Avoiding
that makes sense.
avoiding the wrath of the IRS is a good reason.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
got it.
I think, and I don't know, maybe somebody said this and I missed it, but if you're directing somebody of what to do and where to go, they have to be a W-2 employee.
Yes.
That is the law.
Mhm.
So
Correct.
unless you're just saying, hey, what do you want to do today? But if you are directing them on what they have to do and where they're going that day, they have to be an employee. They cannot be a
I
1099
understand
anymore.
that. I'm both hands on that side. It's just my employees, contractors, they resisted as much as they can.
I mean, ultimately,
Well,
you're
what
just going to
about
have to
this,
make the
man?
decision to say, hey, this is what
This
we're
is-
doing. You
'cause
can
you're gonna
stay
get
or
in
you can
trouble.
go.
Yeah, the
You're
worst
gonna
part
get-
of that is top performers are 1099s.
Yeah, yep. Well, what about going the other direction, man? If they're 1099s and it's working, but you're going to get in hot water, what about telling them, okay, we're going to give you more freedom. We're going to break the calls up into however many techs you have, 3-4 techs, 3 buckets. You get these, you schedule with them yourselves. We don't tell you where to go. We encourage you to get other employment or other,
Yeah,
like
that's
get
the
the money from
direction.
other sources.
Thank you very much. Yeah, that's the direction I'm heading to, and partially implemented that. However, I do understand whenever auditor see this, there will be a lot of questions.
Yeah.
I don't even want to be involved in that.
How many techs? How many techs, Ivan?
Too many.
More than 20?
20.
Okay. Yeah, that's a big problem to have.
It's also, when you're doing that, if you went the other direction and gave them more freedom, I don't know. I worry about the reputation of my company.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, it's not the best solution. So I was wondering if anyone went that journey and was able to overcome it.
How many,
I did
how
many
many
years
rock
ago,
stars-
and
How
I've
many
never
rock stars you
compared
got,
any-
Ivan?
4.
4 out of 20? And
Mhm.
how many would you get rid of and give to me in a heartbeat?
I don't want to get rid of them. I
So all of them are they're all meeting standards, they're making you money, they're
They are top
profitable.
performers. Yeah, I
Oh,
thought you
good.
asked for the rock stars.
Yeah, all right. So that's great, man. Yeah. I'm gonna get my resume in there real fast then. That's amazing.
So,
Yeah, okay. I'll keep digging into that problem. I'll let you
You're
know
just
when
gonna
I
have
solve
to you're gonna have to pay him more, Ivan. That's all you're gonna have to do. But at 20 techs,
business
it's a
model
hard thing
doesn't
to do.
work that way.
Yeah.
See, and I've tried to go your way, Ivan, is saying, how can I get some 1099? And my brain just can't wrap around it, how they fit into the business and how the IRS doesn't come and audit me one day because of all the 1099s.
Hey,
Yeah.
by the way, going the commission route naturally solves a couple of problems. Because if these guys go back on a callback, that they go back on their own callbacks, by the way, they're on commission. They don't get paid for them. Now we've got a cost. We've got our, truck and time, and we're not doing other things, but having them on commission, they don't want to call back.
well,
They
that
don't want to go back a second time.
Yeah,
It varies by
commission-based
state,
guys, they don't recall. They just don't.
Ivan, my name is Matt from Toledo, Ohio. Many years ago, I had 1099 contractors when I started my company 40 years ago. And I slowly just told the guys that we're not 1099ing anymore, that if they don't want to be an employee, that we are just, eliminating 1099 employees. And slowly, all of my guys, I have 14 technicians now, they've all transitioned over the years over to W-2 employees. So we just slowly transitioned them and just told them that 1099 wasn't going to exist any longer. And they all transitioned.
Thank you, Matt.
They didn't want to originally, and
Yeah.
but they've all transitioned slowly.
Thank you, Matt. Appreciate the response.
Are those guys loyal to you? I mean, are they?
Yeah.
Are they?
Our crew is pretty good. The only, let's say, complaint I have is the compliance status of it.
So they don't do calls on the side, because if they 1099 and they could easily steal your customers.
They probably could if they want. They just don't.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I'm sure they are.
Yeah, they may.
I mean,
Until it doesn't affect the revenue they bring, I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
Hey guys, can I ask a question? Hello.
Sure.
Of
course. Sure. Go ahead.
Hey, I'm Anthony. I'm out in California, where we got the best tax laws. Joking, obviously. We pay our guys. We're behind the times. We pay our guys hourly still. I want to make this commission switch, but how do you figure out that percentage? Do you just like pick a number out of the air and say, "Cool, this is what we're gonna do," or what's the best way to handle that?
Last place I worked as a commission tech was they just had 2 tiers, whether you did sealed system or not, and it was either, I think we had like 33 or 38% of labor and service call, no parts. And that worked out pretty good for a pretty good sized company. I think it was the Appliance Hospital in the Northwest. And Steve Merriam, I think he probably had 50 techs, and they retained people pretty long. I mean, they had some attrition, but that worked for us.
I mean,
Yeah, I have a. Oh, go ahead.
well,
Sorry.
you can do the math on your current numbers and see what
Exactly.
percentage of revenue are you currently paying your technicians, and then just kind of do some calculations based off of that, so you can come up with the same number. So if you're paying your techs 25% of revenue based on their hourly rate, well, maybe you can just pay them 25% commission. And that's not an exact example, but that's how I would start with something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, gotcha. And to me, I see there's definitely a benefit going the commission route. And so I want to make that switch, but we've just been doing the hourly thing. Before we could do 1099s with techs and we would pay them like 40% of the profit or whatever. But now we can't 1099, they're all W-2. So I'm just trying to go about it smart and not just pick a frivolous number out there and say, yeah, we're going to pay you this much,
And I would imagine California is probably like New York, where there are qualifications on who can work for commission only, and it's probably not appliance tech. So you're going to have to most likely have an hourly base as well, and then figure out the structure.
Okay, that's a good point. So we pay them an hourly and then just give them some other additional
So the
bonus,
way New
essentially.
York does it, and this is what we figured out with the attorney, was they have different qualifications for commission. One is called earned commission and one is called unearned commission. Unearned commission is like your straight commission number before you make any adjustments. So let's say you know, whatever, just real easy numbers. Let's say they build out $10,000 for the week just to make it easy to work with, and they have 25%. So their own 25% commission, so $2,500 would be their commission. But you're paying them an hourly rate of $1,000 a week. So you can make an adjustment from that unearned commission of a labor cost, right? And so now you get your $1,000 hourly, but you only get $1,500 for the commission. So it works out to the same way, but to be legally compliant, at least in New York, that's how you have to do it. And I would imagine California is probably similar.
It probably is. Yeah.
Yeah,
Good
that's
old
how
states.
Minnesota. That's how Minnesota is.
Yeah.
Okay,
I mean,
good
talk to a
point.
labor
Thanks for-
attorney. I really was some of the best money we spent to really just go over it and make sure we're compliant, because I don't need a, you know, nobody needs a labor lawsuit from the state. That's for sure.
No, not at all. Okay. Yeah. Thanks for pointing that out. That's a good thing to
But
know.
an average commission rate in the industry is anywhere from 30 to 40%. You know, parts and labor. Labor and service call. We're unique. We pay on parts also. We pay a commission on parts also. We're 35% across the board, including parts. Our technicians get commission on parts, but we have a parts matrix multiplier that we have for the technicians. So, you know, they're set prices. So, but the industry, 30 to 40%, you know, is the average. Anywhere from 30 on the low side up to 40% on the high side.
So
Yeah, it was way easier. It was way easier when we could 1099 people, but now, yeah, that, you know, shut down a while ago. So
you're
that's
saying
very risky. 1099 is very risky. You know, if you get audited, you know, more than likely they're going to find something that you don't comply with if you're 1099 employees, unless you really, really are watching it on a daily basis.
yeah, no, I can't even mess around out here with that. So yeah, everybody's got to be an employee for sure. I'm sorry, somebody else was going to say something too?
No, I was gonna ask, you said you pay a set percentage across the board on parts and labor. And everybody's at the same percentage in your company, or you scale that depending on where their skill level's at?
Are you directing that?
Oh,
Yeah.
hey, how's it
Yeah,
going?
to you, Matt. Yeah.
Oh, really good.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, guys. I thought I was.
Hey, Matt, I'm curious where you came up with the average number, because everybody I've spoken to, 30 to 40, I mean, 30 seems like on the high end. We pay some of our techs at 35, but that's like the max they get, only on labor, not even on trip charge or anything like that. I'm just curious where you get the
But trip charge is part of labor, right?
Well, not for us. We split it out. We paid a lower commission on the trip charge because you know, if you're out there just collecting trip charges, I'm not paying you full commission.
Yeah, well, if you just collect trip charges, you're going to go bankrupt as a company, right?
Well, right.
So,
But I want to incentivize like actually selling jobs. Even
Yeah.
minimum labor, clean the condenser, do something. You get more money out of
So
it.
what's your percentage of that then?
So for our lowest tier is 22% on trip and 29% on labor. And then our highest is I think 28 on trip and 35 on labor. I'd have to look it up, something like that.
And is that in addition to a salary of some sort or hourly?
Well, like I said, there's the base hourly. In the end, it works out to whichever is higher. Is your hourly wage higher or is your commission higher? Because that's the number you get in the end. The way it's broken down on the pay stub is compliant in you know, with the laws, so it's structured.
Yeah, because if they
in the end, that's what you get.
If they hit overtime, then you're like, this is the number with overtime with hours, and here's your commission, so you get that. Yeah.
Exactly.
Oh, that's okay.
Do you have a blanket
Being
hourly
on
for
commission,
everybody?
we don't pay overtime at all.
Right, but
I'm
that varies by state, Herb. Like we can't just in New York, I'm not allowed to put guys on straight commission. They're not appliance techs are not qualified to work for straight commission legally in New York. So.
Yeah, got it.
Ooh.
It would be
You know,
nice.
one other
So wait,
piece
somebody
of
had a
the,
question. Kendra did.
Sorry. Yeah, I was saying, do you have like a blanket hourly for all your techs where it's all the same, or is it like every tech is a different hourly? based on
No, we give
experience?
everybody the same hourly rate. It's like, this is just what you get. Because really, realistically, if somebody's not making, if they're just hitting their hourly rate, they're not going to be around for long because they're not doing a good job. So it's just there
Okay.
because it has to be there, and it's not,
yeah. I was just gonna add one other piece of, if somebody's looking at, sorry, Sandra.
Yes. So currently what we are doing is we're just paying everybody's salary, hourly salary, basically. And we want to transition or incentivize them with some sort of commission. So I was really interested in seeing how to do that. If you guys have some advice for us, from salary to maybe an addition, giving them some sort of commission in addition to that, for instance, like I said, incentivize them for their labor and stuff like that. To take on more jobs, to have less recalls, and of course, to get the job done the first time they go.
I think one of the problems with changing from the structure you have to a new structure is always that there's going to be resistance from new employees. Like I thought about changing the structure we have going forward for new employees, but how are you going to approach your employees and say, hey, we're going to lower your salary, but you're also now going to get commission. So you'll probably be the same. They're not going to take that very well. So like, unless you're willing to just pay a whole bunch more money by adding commission to their salary, you really got to think about how you want to structure that and, and present it to the employees. Because once they hear we're lowering something, forget it. It doesn't matter if the math works out in the end. If you hear the word lower, it's over.
Well, David, I have a question for you, if you don't mind.
Sure.
When you start guys off, do you train techs from the ground level?
Mostly that's what we do. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you start them on commission from day one, or do you pay them hourly until they step into commission?
Yeah, well,
when the numbers
as a
match?
trainee, it's just a low hourly wage, and
Yeah.
there's no commission to pay. They're not doing
Because that kind of seems like a similar conversation to me. Like I remember, 15 years ago at Appliance Hospital, my service manager was super cool, but he said, okay, here's your commission. And month over month, it was more.
Right. You broke up a little bit. You froze. I didn't hear that in the middle. You said you had a service manager.
Yeah, he the way he handled that transition from hourly to commission, which happened with all the trainees. We started low hourly, and then he would start giving us commission reports by quarter, and he'd say, for your last 3 paychecks, this is what you would have made if you were on commission, with the jobs you actually did.
Okay.
And
okay, that's a good idea.
So it's kind of a similar conversation as a working tech going to commission. That you might end up paying them a little bit more, but I feel like commission. I mean, I would not have been as good a tech as I am if I wasn't on commission because I had skin in the game.
Yeah. Oh, I know if I paid my guys just hourly, even $40 an hour, they'd make less money. They're incentivized to do work because they're gonna get that commission on it. At least that's my.
Yeah.
When we start people and to train them, we start them at a extremely low hourly rate. But as they start progressing, we'll start having them go out and put on parts for a second trip that's already been diagnosed. And we start letting them share in commissions early. And then, by the time they're fully ready for the field, they're up to par with everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, that's. I don't know how you could really can't do anything else with a trainee. I mean, we try to pay pretty low. I think $20 an hour for a trainee or something like that.
It costs a lot of money.
Oh yeah, no, for sure.
In the People's Republic of Oregon, $20 an hour is $3 over minimum wage.
Oh yeah, no, here in New York, Nassau County, I think we're at something pretty close to that as well. Yeah, so
yeah.
Julie Olson said, when an experienced tech makes 30% commission, what is their base pay? I mean, I guess it depends on your structure. That's kind of a complicated question. Julie, do you want
Okay, maybe
chime in
I
and-
didn't know. So I'm just listening to all you guys, and we must pay our tech like out of control amounts. He's fantastic. He's, you know, people ask for him by name. I have a very small business. We live in a very small community resort area in Colorado. So we have a lot of really high-end houses, high-end jobs. We charge a service call diagnostic fee of $180, and that's just where we start. And he gets 50% commission, but he has no base pay. So he doesn't have vacation pay. He doesn't have sick pay. He's a W-2 employee. He's in charge of his own. Keep making sure he gets all of his parts written off, orders his own parts. So I feel like he's worth it, but I'm listening to you guys, and we just hired a new guy, and right now he's still training, but I'm listening to you guys, and I feel like maybe we're not making any money because we're paying him all our money.
50% of what? 50% of parts and labor only? What are you paying?
No,
50%
it's
of what?
50% of just labor. We rewrite off the parts. Yeah.
But he's doing everything. He's the parts orderer. He does every part of the business for you.
I just do the scheduling and all the admin, payroll, you know, that basic stuff, which isn't so basic.
I mean,
But yeah,
if you're training a new tech, he's probably not going to be a rock star like this guy is.
nobody will ever take his place.
That's right. So you certainly don't have to match the same pay schedule for sure.
Well, this new guy doesn't know much. I mean, doesn't know much about it, but
When you say-
I'm just wondering.
When you
What's
say
that?
write off, you said write off the parts a couple times. Is he buying the parts?
Well, I guess that's just what I call our system. He puts on he keeps track of all the parts on. I have a spreadsheet for him, and he fills out the part numbers so I can keep track of them, make sure that he's not using parts for other jobs or for his own job, you know, for jobs that don't pertain to the job that he's getting paid for. So I know exactly what parts he's putting into each job. And then so then we have a flat rate for, like, say a job is $635 and his parts on that were 235, you know, so you just take those off and then he would get paid 50% of what was left over.
And your company is paying for the part, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So one of the simple ways to look at something like that, I think, is if you look at your P&L and you have your revenue, and then you have your cost of goods sold, and then you have your expenses, and then whatever's left is a profit. Typically, I think gross profit, which is revenue minus cost of goods sold, and cost of goods sold includes parts and technician labor. Your gross profit should be somewhere in the 55% range. Because really then, like, if you're targeting 20% profit, expenses, you know, your rent and all of that stuff usually run somewhere between 30 and 40%. So like, if you add those things up, how much is left over for profit? So if you're at 45% for cost of goods sold and 40% for expenses, that's 85%. That leaves you 15% profit. And if, you know, you can do those numbers and move them around and see how they work and what percentage of that are you paying to the technician. That'll kind of give you a clue of where you might want to be or make changes if you want to. At least you have some sort of reference to look at. And, you know, I think 55% gross profit is right around, you know, pretty common in general for home services in general. Does anybody look at it like that, or just to figure out, you know, where you might want to be as far as a technician pay? as a percentage of revenue?
Yeah. I have a quick, good. Question. So we are in California, Los Angeles, and we are kind of in the same space that we pay our technicians about like 45 to 50%. So if we're minusing the part and then we're paying our technician as a 1099 contractors. We are always kind of in we have a lot of questions about the W-2, like we were thinking like the expenses are so much that it's gonna the pay, like for example, if we pay 30 or 35% as a W-2 our technicians, but the other expenses are gonna be more. For example, like W-2, van, and all those like the expenses. I wanted to have your opinion on that.
I think just jumping, I think the bottom line is you're going to pay more to do it the right way. Unfortunately, you have to have W-2 employees in this business. 1099 doesn't pass the muster test. I mean, by any stretch in today's world. So you're going to end up paying more in total, and that's part of your cost of doing business. So you need to raise your prices accordingly. And kind of back to, I think there was a question on how do you figure out, how much commission you should pay or what percentage. It's as simple as running, a report for the last year on all of your jobs and figuring out what you would pay in commission that would equal what they're getting paid now. And so run a model based on your last year or your last 6 months or your last 3 months, and figure out what they would have gotten paid on commission and match that percentage wise with their current pay and show them, hey, here's the last year, here's the last 6 months, here's what you would have made on commission. It's the exact same, but if you perform better, you're actually going to start making more.
Well, I don't know if that applies though, if you're going from 1099 to W-2, because 1099 gets a higher percentage because they
no
are responsible for everything.
Well, I mean, you still have to figure out your commission percentage based on your current job, count or based off their current work level. So if they're going to you want them to make the same amount and work the same amount of jobs, then you need to run that report.
You're not gonna tell a 1099 guy he's gonna make the same amount working as a W-2 employee because now he doesn't have the expense of a truck or insurance or anything like that. So then
correct, but you can get those numbers from the 1099 employee. Hey, what are you paying for your truck? What are you paying for insurance? What are your expenses here? But at the end of the day, you're going to end up paying more as a company if you want them to be paid at the same level because you're paying additional taxes. At the end of the day, you're paying out more money 100% to a W-2 employee. That's why so many people want to have 1099s, but we can't.
Yeah, that's totally understandable that they're not going to be making that same amount of percentage that they're receiving now. It's just so if like let's say if they make 40% or something with the work, like 50% with workers' compensation and everything together. So that's gonna be kind of like impossible to do business in like LA area. The lead prices are so much. So yeah.
Yeah, you need to figure out their true expenses. They're paying their own health insurance, they're paying their own truck, they're paying their own uniforms, they're paying their own cell phone, they're paying their own fill in the blank. They're paying all of that themselves. In theory, they should be as 1099 employees. Yeah. So you have to subtract that from what they're going to be making as a W-2 employee. So there shouldn't be that much of a difference, but at the end of the day, as a company, you're going to have to pay all those extra taxes and you're going to have to raise your prices accordingly. At the end of the day, a W-2 employee should make the same amount as a 1099 employee at all things considered.
Oh, God. So that was my question. So pretty much end of your expenses is about the same as you pay as on 1099 after W-2, right?
Look, if a 1099 person is making, $200,000 a year, say, right? But he's paying out $60,000 or $70,000 in expenses for vehicles and maintenance and insurance and uniforms and all of the stuff that you're not paying for. So now you say, all right, well, you're paying $70,000 a year in expenses, so I'll pay you commission as an employee, which would now equal $130,000 a year. So it's going to seem like he's making $70,000 a year less, but losing $70,000 a year of expenses. So it's the same. But from a percentage perspective, if you're paying 50% to 1099, you're probably going to pay 30% to a W-2, but then you're going to take on those expenses. So
Got it.
something like that. I mean, you'll do the math, but yeah.
Thank you.
Hey, quick one. This won't be quick. Well, I'm going to be quick, but then it's not going to really get an answer because we got like 5 minutes.
5 minutes, Doug.
So in 1990, our service fee was $40. Our average ticket was around $200. We at Action Appliance back then, it was, you know, a percentage, like 20% of everything that you bring in, parts and labor. So that's about 20%. Service fee is like 20% of the average ticket. In today's world, it's 150 or sometimes 200 for our service fee, and our average ticket's around $350. My technicians are making a great living just driving to people's houses and collecting service fees. Now, I'm just being facetious and mean about them. I love my guys, but it is hard to use that carrot and that carrot motivation of commission if they just go in and diagnose the problem. And we're a COD business and quote and leave. That they could make a really great salary, $70,000-$80,000 just doing service call onlys, which would be terrible for our customers in our industry. So I'm thinking about spiffing them a small fee, flat, just $20 on a walk, and not paying them any commission on the service fee. What are you guys doing, or do you have opinions about it?
I have
We pay a lower percentage of commission on the service call versus the rest of the job. So if they go and complete a service call, they're only getting paid 25% of our service call fee, which is $150. And if they are completing the job, the entire profit on the job gets paid 30%. And we don't collect on a service fee. We waive that service fee. So they're getting paid 30% on the entire job, parts profit included. And as opposed to 25% if they just collect the $150 service call fee. So, you know, I think the crux of the whole conversation today, I think we've all realized, is that we want the pay structure to match the goals of the company. And I think that's really important. An hourly rate, you know, doesn't match the goals of most of our companies, which is to maximize efficiency and maximize profits and maximize employee pay. You know, but to do that, you have to pay on commission. And then the question is how do you structure that commission to align with your goals? If your goals are reviews, getting higher reviews because you're looking to grow the company, then you need to have a component that pays for higher reviews. If you're looking to lower the amount of you know, service calls that you're collecting and increase the amount of repairs, that's my suggestion, Doug, is pay them less on service call, and more on the repairs.
And that's what we do. They get it's a lower percentage on the service call portion.
That's not so passive aggressive or aggressive to say, damn it, I'm not paying you your commission. I'm going to give you a spiff. So just lowering the commission, just because as a business we can't.
You don't make any money.
Maintain this. Yeah, I like that. It's much. So I'm going to return my Amazon order of the shock collars with the remote control because I was just going to use that. But that sounds like okay. I appreciate that, guys. Thank you.
All right, guys. Well, we're just about an hour here, so unless anybody has anything they want to throw in for last little bit, I think we're gonna wrap it up. I think it was a pretty good conversation today. Everybody kept flowing. I didn't have to talk a lot, so that was good. We got to hear Doug talk, so that's always fun.
Hey,
But,
quick question for you guys there.
Yeah.
you know, man, it's kind of embarrassing, but you know, I'm not a great business owner and I need to get my ass in gear. Is there like a mentorship thing that I could reach out later to, or how does that work? Or is there anything like that on this platform?
I don't know that we have any official mentorships, but you can definitely reach out to people, either on this, that have been on the call, or most importantly, come to ASTI in January and like take some real business classes.
So the closest thing to a mentorship that we have now is what we call peer groups. And as a member of the United Appliance Services Association, you have an opportunity to join a peer group, and that gives you 10 people that are like-minded in different markets, so they're non-competitive, and you can join these peer groups and they dive into your numbers and they help you grow and they help you, learn as a business owner from the other business owners, and you get to kind of learn from each other's mistakes and failures and also the good stuff. So if you're not a member of the UASA, I definitely recommend looking into that. And then like David said, we have one giant convention every year where all the servicers and business owners come together. And that's a great place to do the same thing, bounce stuff off other business owners, learn and grow for sure.
So are the peer groups accessible through the USA website?
Yes.
Like once you sign up, once you become a member or whatever?
Yep.
There's an application you can put in that's on the website.
Okay, gotcha. Well, I appreciate it. Thank you. That's good stuff.
All right, guys and ladies, very good conversation, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, David.
Thank you.